morning, everybody, and welcome to this, what seems to be a rather exciting webinar today on the topic of women in STEM entrepreneurship, challenges and opportunities. I am very pleased to welcome our colleagues from the Irish Embassy, especially His Highness the Ambassador of Ireland, Austin Gormley, and of course our esteemed panelists. But before I go any further, I just wanted to share a little anecdote. You know, this morning for breakfast, I had a slice of toast and tea. And as I was having it, I thought about this particular topic of entrepreneurship and how just that toasted slice of bread and cup of tea involves such a complex engagement of many aspects of entrepreneurship coming together, from the agricultural side of planting the wheat, to harvesting, to milling the flour, to actually getting the bread baked and all the ingredients that go with it, to the point of me being able to go to a shop to buy the bread, the butter, same processes, the jam if I wanted to add jam, and the tea, from the production of tea, the whole processing, fermentation, bringing together microbiology, applied microbiology, mechanical, chemical engineering, trade, finance and commerce, and the whole thing about product to consumers. You know, we take all of these things for granted. Very rarely do we sit back and think about how all of these things come together. And it was that was on my mind as I thought about the topic of entrepreneurship. When you look at the panel, all women who have done remarkably well in their own areas of expertise by, on the one hand, working up to becoming experts in the field, and the other taking product to market in one way or the other. I mean, it really is a fascinating world. And we rarely give time to sit back sometimes and think about these processes. It is particularly interesting for us to celebrate this particular series within the period of the month when we celebrate heritage. South Africa has a richness of diverse cultures. And of course, every single culture brings in it some aspects of knowledge, indigenous knowledge, that in one way or the other has contributed to the whole process of entrepreneurship as we enjoy the various aspects that these diverse cultures have contributed in bringing products to market. So I just thought I would share that little anecdote of just stepping back for a while and thinking about things in a much bigger way. And let's applaud these entrepreneurs that we are going to hear from in a short while with respect to what they are continuing to contribute to build this economy in South Africa. I now hand over to the chair and once again wish to welcome one and all to this rather exciting panel. Over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sujal, and for your very warm opening remarks. And just iterate a warm welcome to all of the attendees, the panelists, the speakers, those joining, those listening, those watching. A very warm welcome. We hope to have a very, as you say, interactive panel discussion in which the stories and case studies of some excellent entrepreneurs, thought leaders, academics in the entrepreneurship space can be shared. But before we have that panel discussion, I'm delighted to ask our Ambassador of Ireland to the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Austin Gormley, to make some opening remarks. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you, Professor Sudal, for your opening remarks, and greetings also to our wonderful panel of speakers. I have recently arrived in South Africa in mid-August, so I'm particularly delighted to deliver opening remarks for this virtual event. Very pleased to be partnering also with the Academy of Science of South Africa to host it. It's the second of the series of events, as I understand, following on a youth-focused session in 2021. Today's speakers certainly share our commitment to make connections between scientists, researchers, entrepreneurs, so sharing perspectives, expertise, and learning for each other. And that's the vocation for today. It is timely in that we're marking 30 years of diplomatic relations between Ireland and the Republic of South Africa. As I say, I've arrived recently, but in the short term, I've been here. I've been very struck by, first of all, the warm welcome. I have to say, very warm welcome from all South Africans I've met, but including at a political level. And it's obvious that there are very strong, long-lasting ties of friendship, and it's born of solidarity, of course, in our respective struggles and shared values. So I'm certainly looking forward to building on that, and very much focusing on the political level, the cultural space, and even on the sporting field. Some of you may have heard that there was a result at the weekend that didn't go South Africa's Springboks way, but I hope that doesn't undermine in any sense our warm feelings of friendship and kinship. But look, beyond that, I think we also have already laid the foundations for strong partnership in the area of science and technology, and I'll say a word about that later. We're focusing today on Irish and South African perspectives and encouraging women in STEM entrepreneurs. This includes supporting women in research and academia in the STEM space to commercialize their research and start their own businesses. It's certainly a vital component of how we can drive inclusive economic growth in both countries. As I say, in my contribution, I want to share some perspectives on how we're performing in Ireland, as you would expect, on women in STEM and women in entrepreneurship. Secondly, I'll just say a word about the Embassy of Ireland, what we're doing to build connections in the space. In terms of Ireland more broadly, just starting with the positive, I mean, we're a world leader in technology and innovation. From humble beginnings, we developed into a global hub for many technology companies, as many of you will be aware, in the pharmaceutical and medical space, and also ICT. Brand names, Google, such as Google, Apple, Meta, Internet, Pfizer, Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, they're all implanted in Ireland and using Ireland as a key European base and a base for exports beyond the European Union, indeed. Our total trade as a country, for example, exceeds the value of our GDP, and STEM contributes substantially to that GDP growth. We have a strong talent pipeline. In fact, we have the highest level of STEM graduates among 20 to 29-year-olds in the European Union, but there remains still a gender gap, as there does elsewhere. In Ireland, of those entering higher education, 43% of men study STEM subjects compared to only 19% of women, so less than half of women are opting for STEM. Recent figures show that only a quarter of those working in STEM industries in Ireland were women. So more work to be done. There's obviously, as has been well documented, a question of economic efficiency as well as inclusion in promoting women in STEM. Research clearly shows that having a more diverse and gender balanced workforce improves financial gain, boosts productivity, and encourages innovation. And we like to think of ourselves and are a creative and dynamic and innovative economy. So we need to continue to harness the talents of women. There's now an increased focus in Ireland on improving the picture with dedicated approach and support from the Irish government, our state agency, Enterprise Ireland, that's our business development agency, and a range of other private and public actors. And we're starting to see some benefits from the approach. For example, women in entrepreneurship. Back in 2012, just 8% of entrepreneurs on what we call our high potential startup program were women led. So that's 8% in 2012. It's now at 37% in 2022. So that's very positive for sure. Women are attending training programs in our local enterprise offices more than before, and we have more women on corporate boards than before. I was an honorary member of the 30% Club in Ireland, which promotes women on boards, and our Department of Foreign Affairs as well, did support the 30% Club initiative. Ireland's gender pay gap is among the lowest in the EU and has been falling since 2018. So we've had good progress to date, lots to do, and we want to address those challenges with the best of ideas from both the Republic of South Africa and from our Irish speakers. I just say as well, as a Department of Foreign Affairs, we are leading by example in the sense that 50% of our heads of mission at ambassadorial and consul general level, over 50% are now women. And I think that's world leading. And again, that's part of a conscious effort to bring more women into top leadership positions in the Department of Foreign Affairs, and other departments and ministries are echoing this. As the embassy, we've been working hard to build connections that can address these challenges, working with ASSAf, of course, but also with the South African government and through our universities. I just want to give you two tangible examples before I conclude. The first is, and Paul has been very active on this, is the Irish Tech Challenge South Africa, which was launched recently in partnership with the Department of Science and Innovation. It remains open for applicants until this Friday. It's a program that serves to connect South African entrepreneurs with Ireland's world-class tech ecosystem through mentorship, acceleration programs, and financial support of €10,000 per group, and a curated week-long visit to Ireland to engage with the tech system. So it's very much connecting South African tech system with the Irish expertise and experience. At the heart of the challenge is a focus on encouraging women and young entrepreneurs in particular. Last year, all 5 South African startups in the program were women-founded companies and owned by people from communities of historical disadvantage in South Africa. The partnerships and mentoring of this program offers are crucial to supporting women entrepreneurs, and I met some of them when I visited with Paul Wits University recently. Very impressive what they're achieving in terms of improving security, for example, for women in townships. Secondly, we've supported a research partnership since 2018 between South Africa and Irish universities of technology, and a core part of that has been a program to connect technology transfer officers in South African universities with mentoring, shadowing, and coaching from their Irish counterparts. This aims at sharing expertise and building capacity in supporting students and researchers to start their own businesses. Earlier this year, a group of 21 people, mainly women technology officers from 15 universities across South Africa, were hosted in 7 Irish universities as part of an immersion program. And I believe that Dr. Gumede is on the panel, who was on the panel today, took part in that visit. These programs help us to play a role, some role in connecting Irish women researchers, academics and entrepreneurs with their South African counterparts. And today's event will, I no doubt, help move the conversation forward. I'm looking forward to hearing any contributions from our distinguished panelists, and want to once again thank Professor Sudyal and your team at ASSAf for your partnership in delivering this event. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for those remarks. And with that, we can, I suppose, scene setting and context setting, we can move to the panel discussion, and I'm delighted to introduce our panelists for this discussion. Let me just give a brief bio for each of them before we start into the discussion. I would say to the 52 and growing number of attendees throughout the discussion, we hope this to be an interactive platform. You'll hear case studies, examples, lessons, advice, experience from some fantastic women entrepreneurs and women thought leaders in this space. Please submit your questions in the chat, and we'll take them, and we'll get responses to them. And hopefully you can get some advice and lessons if you're thinking of going down the entrepreneurship route, or you have already. So without further ado, we have on our panel this morning, Professor Kiolobahile Motaung, who is Director of Technology Transfer and Innovation at Durban University of Technology, and a distinguished biomedical scientist, an advocate for science, innovation and technology, and a founder of Global Health Biotech Company. We have Queen Ndlovu, who is CEO and co-founder of QP Drone Tech, and also the host organization for South African Flying Labs. She'll tell us a bit more about what that entails, and finalist of Women in Tech 2020 of the South African Tech Innovation Summit. Dr. Nqobile Gumede is Director of the Innovation Office at Nelson Mandela University, Chief Executive Officer and member of the board of Innovate Limited, which is a university-owned technology commercialization company, a very interesting model. And as Ambassador had mentioned, one of the participants in our shadowing and mentoring program between Irish and South African universities. Jackie O'Connor is joining us from Ireland. She is founder and managing director of MedScan 3D, which helps healthcare professionals and research engineers access patient-specific medical 3D printing. She is an experienced and distinguished biomedical engineer with a first-class degree honours in chemistry, and she is skilled in biomaterials, regulatory requirements, technical sales, and polymer chemistry. I won't pretend to understand what that last one was, but Jackie, I'm sure you'll explain to those of us lay people on this in this session. We have Dr. Patience Ntunzi Kufa, who is principal researcher and head and research group leader of biophotonics in the CSIR here in Pretoria, a winner of the Department of Science and Innovation's Distinguished Woman Special Award 2023, and winner of the Order of Mapungubwe Bronze for her national and international contribution. So I think you will see and agree we have a wonderful panel lined up. I'd ask if the panelists are able to turn on their videos if bandwidth allows, so that we can see and interact in as much as possible. And I might just kick off, I suppose, to start with each of our panelists and the entrepreneurs, and maybe Jackie, going all the way to you in Ireland. It's very hard to summarize the story of entrepreneurship in a couple of minutes, but I suppose with the mind on the audience of potentially people in the academic research space, young women in STEM, what would you say are some of the key, I suppose, points in your journey, entrepreneurship journey, particularly from studying and working in STEM to starting your own business?
Thanks for having me, and lovely to meet you all. And as Austin said, sorry for the loss, but we're a happy country on last Saturday. But hopefully he continues to have some good games. For myself on entrepreneurship, I nearly want to say I fell into it in a way, because when you become when you work in science, you don't really see the broader picture of business. For me, when you work in a lab, I worked in a biomaterials lab, and then go into the wider world of med tech sector. I suppose business and science don't always mix when you start off in your journey. So for me, it was really a kind of a break when I went on maternity leave to say, okay, well, actually, is this part of my journey? Can I become a woman in STEM in business? And I can, and I did. And I suppose a few nuggets of how I got there was building your community. So meeting like-minded women. It doesn't just have to be women, but generally women will kind of guide you in the right direction. So I joined networks such as Network Ireland, and also programs such as the STEM and Women. And there's great podcasts as well. She Talks Tech is another one. So doing those things allowed me to kind of start my journey of my life in business, I suppose. And then also I'm in an ecosystem here called Platform 94, and they've been instrumental in guiding me on how to get grants in business. So without grants and without money, it's very hard to kind of start your own business. So having that ecosystem and that support network, you can't do it alone. It's not possible to be a man or woman in business alone. You have to find your network. So find your network in a social setting, find your role models, and also find where you can get the money to start your business. That would be kind of, and I know that's a very broad, and I'm happy to kind of go into more detail on how to kind of gain those accesses. But for me, it's about support in every angle, to really find your path.
Thanks, Jackie. I think you speak to the importance of the networks, the mentors, and the ecosystem, which is very interesting. And taking us moving back to South Africa, Professor Matowing, if I can come to you, I know you maybe want to give a bit of an overview, but I'd be interested to hear, based in leading on technology transfer in the University of Technology there, and having started your own company, what is your perspective on that in terms of the role, particularly the University Technology Transfer Office, for example, can play in acting as mentor, network support to particularly young women entrepreneurs?
Thank you so much for that. I was going to just show you the thing, but I guess it's because of the time. Let me start by saying, in most cases, and we need to be brutally honest about this, most of the people that are at the technology transfer innovation in the university, some of them, they don't understand entrepreneurship. That's where we start. That becomes a challenge. So they talk about the dreams that they never did it. I mean, it's like, I would have done it, not been able to understand that there are challenges. And I'm talking based on experience, because I had to turn my PhD into a spin-off. That's what I've got, global health biotech. So that becomes the challenge on that on its own, having, even if you can train them, the tech transfer. I mean, I'm talking from experience. I mean, we went to Ireland. I'm also one of the people who went to Trinity College in Dublin. The fact of the matter is, if they themselves, they are not entrepreneur, I mean, it's like you want to make somebody an accountant and that person is not an accountant. How is that going to be possible? Because they're always going to talk about the theory and keep on telling you, I can do this, I can do this. I personally believe that you need to walk the path so that you can be able to tell me, because I can tell you what were the challenges, what happened, how to overcome them, because I personally walked through that route. Now, if you got somebody who is now sitting in the office and then not being able to interact with the researchers and then being able to explain how to go about that, that becomes a challenge on its own. Secondly, we expect students to be entrepreneurs. And who is teaching these students? They're the very same professors. Hello, are they entrepreneurs, they themselves, when we started talking about this? I think sometimes we need to understand where are the challenges. And then we also need to understand what are we really doing wrong at the university level. And then to be able to start talking about entrepreneur, that who is actually driving this, the drive force. Entrepreneur is not about the theory. Entrepreneur is not about the lean canvas model. It's not about the small business plan that the people use it. It goes far beyond it. And not all people that they're thinking that we've got different kind of entrepreneurs. Not everybody can just thinking that just because I'm a tenderpreneur, therefore I'm an entrepreneur. It's far beyond that. So, and I think these are the kind of things that we personally need to understand and to say, what is actually the role of the tech transfer? And then that tech transfer manager or director or senior director, does he or she actually understand what is her or his role in terms of how she's going to support the entrepreneur in the university? Then that is one of the things that is very important, because quite often we will always talk about the same thing, and we'll always talk about funding entrepreneur. And I always said, gone are those days that we can start talking about funding. Funding for entrepreneur is not an issue. It's how entrepreneurs are pitching to the venture capitals so that they can get the funding, not pitching an academic pitching and pitching it to the venture capital and thinking that they will be understand. Secondly, also the mentors that we're talking about, those mentors, they need to understand your ecosystem. They need to understand your business. If I'm in the biotech space and I had to get a mentor in my space, understanding my field, I need somebody who will understand it, rather than getting somebody who is just in another field and thinking that he can mentor them. And I think this is where sometimes we talk about mentor coaching and we don't really get it right. And then we match people that are not matching together. So, and this is my experience that, I mean, I had mentors that some of them couldn't get well because they were not understanding my business, because I wanted a mentor who understands the biotech space, who will be able to get me contact, who will also be able to assist me in terms of the funding. Hence, I'm saying perhaps we must stop. We cannot start talking about challenges is funding. Challenging is not funding. Challenging that we have is where we are training our students from idea to commercialization. We only train them from idea, they build a prototype, well done, or we've got a patent, well done, and so what? Did we explain how they must take it for commercialization? And that, for me, is where we need to start.
Professor, thank you so much. You make so many interesting points we might pick up on as we develop the conversation, particularly around not just mentors, but mentors in your specific field, not just theory, but practice, and the reality of how someone takes a research, commercializes it, and then gets funding from VCs and develops that skill set. And you talk as well about the pipeline. You know, we look at the statistics in Ireland, 19% of students studying STEM are women. In South Africa, it's 13%, 25% of workers in STEM are women in Ireland. So, and then you go back to the choice of STEM subjects in school. So of course, it's right along the pipeline. And today we're a bit more focused on the entrepreneurship bit, but of course that requires a pipeline of young girls to have chosen STEM at school, and then women students to have chosen STEM at university. But perhaps, Dr. Gumeda, we can pick up on, you're in a similar space in Nelson Mandela University, innovation, technology transfer, and we'd obviously like to pick up your perspective and Professor Mataung's perspective on what, in Ireland you felt were the interesting points. But just from your own perspective, does Professor Mataung's perspective tally with yours around, those things around the need for specific mentoring and the need for focus when you are developing that technology transfer support at university level?
Yes, thank you very much. So I think to some degree, I agree with Prof. Mataung, but I think there also are ways to mitigate some of the shortfalls. For example, I think there are models that are fit for purpose that universities can adopt to mitigate the lack of skills. Not all universities can afford the expertise that are needed for effective tech transfer. Some of the models that Nelson Mandela has used, for example, is they've established an incubator and they've partnered with a local company to actually establish the incubator. The local company has access to local industries and local funding support that they can, and mentors that they can provide. So that's one model that they have also used. And also in terms of companies, the subsidiary company of the university, Innovolve, that commercializes the technology that's developed at the university. The board members of those companies the university wouldn't be able to afford those people as staff, but the board membership for that company has access to networks that we wouldn't have a reach of. So while the universities might not have organisms to put in. So I think that's one of the things that we've really adopted and we're working towards. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gumeda. It's interesting. It speaks to the nexus of, it's one of the things in Ireland we think, as a model that's very important. University, research, private sector, government, all interconnecting so that you have the talent pipeline and you have the support structure. Maybe jumping to you, Queen Ndlovu, you're CEO of QP Drone Tech, and you have a very interesting NPO as well. But just taking it back, you founded some other businesses. What was it for you? Was there a point at which you said, I want to start my own business? Was it always something you wanted to do? Was there a mentor? Was there an inspiration or a person or a thing that clicked and you said, this is, what I want to do? Where did your journey, why are you in entrepreneurship and not in another sector?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity and for the question, Paul. My journey goes a long way. I've been into business for 26 years, so you can actually guess my age. But I'm new into tech, of course. I took a decision 5 years ago because the kind of business I was at, I was in building artisan colleges, and other stuff. But 5 years ago, I realized that those the management consultant, the soft skills of business, they're getting saturated and everybody's talking globalization, talking technology. So I decided to sell my businesses and went back to business school and to study the tech. And I chose West Business School because they offered a very interesting program called Masters in Entrepreneurship. And 2 modules that talked to me. The one was emerging technologies, the other one, how to be a global player to mitigate the risk that I had before that the market was getting saturated. So upon passing my master's in entrepreneurship, by the way, I was 50. I don't mind sharing my age because I want to inspire the young women out there that anything is possible, not even your age should be an inhibitor. So I went to China. I spent 6 months there in Shenzhen, the Silicon Valley of China, whereby I was getting exposed on how to run a drone business. And upon coming back, what I love, of course, there is that they're building these drones, they're manufacturing the drones, and next to the industrial site, there is a training academy. So I came back home in 2018. Unfortunately, I was a bit early for the market. I didn't get any exposure in terms of building a drone factory, but I decided to pivot into services. So I became a drone operator. because it's an aviation industry, there's a lot of compliance. Then I collaborated with companies that were meeting the criteria in terms of compliance. And I must say, I then began to receive a lot of traction. I see the awards you're talking about. I think that's a bit outdated. I received awards as a best woman in ICT in Africa, thanks to DECO of this world, to Telecom of this world. I'll be traveling to US soon, next month, to receive another award, just because I was able to pivot and iterate my model. But now I'm back into manufacturing again, because I had to park that business model. Now it's coming back because I see in the market is ready for people like us that wants to build drones locally. I don't know if I missed something that you wanted me to say for now.
Just to
So
pick
that's
up,
my journey for now, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really, really helpful. And just, you mentioned to me when we spoke earlier about your NPO, would you just tell us briefly about that? It speaks a bit to the development of the women, the youth in STEM pipeline particularly.
Yes.
If you would tell us a bit briefly about that.
Okay, thank you so much. So what happened when I was pivoting to drone operation, the service part of drone technology? I thought I would be a drone operator, but then one got an opportunity. We are part of the global movement called We Robotics. They have about 42 flying labs. Those are the NPOs that what they do, what you call drone for good work. So we are appointed to represent, PP Drone Tech was appointed to represent South Africa. Basically, we do three things. Number one, we try to close the digital divide by exposing unemployed youth and young rural kids in the school on 4IR, drone technology, visual reality, how to do professional gaming, what are the prospects there, instead of them becoming normal doctors and GPs. And secondly, now we are professionalizing, because the 4IR 2 days workshop more of an awareness to expose them to the opportunities. But now we are professionalizing them, telling them that in drone technology, you don't have to be a drone pilot. There are a lot of other opportunities. You can be an author like myself. You can be a drone data processing technician, And secondly, on the NPO, what we do as well, we host conferences, but we decided to become a thought leader in disaster management as a response to climate change. So we host conferences on that. And the last one on NPO, of course, we respond to humanitarian crises. When there's a crisis or disasters, we respond flying drones there for session rescue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Queen, for sharing that additional piece of work, which is more than additional, it's crucial to developing the next CEO like you and the next winner of Women in ICT Awards like you mentioned, and congratulations on those awards. Dr. Patience Mthunzi Kufa with the CSIR, it'd be interesting just to get your perspective on, and you have years of experience in developing particularly healthcare solutions and research, and I suppose interested in your perspective from a traditional research background versus commercializing research. Can you give us some of your perspectives and your own experience in this space, and people who want to make the journey from research, traditional research, into starting their own business?
Thanks, Paul, and thank you for the opportunity. I must say, Queen is aging very gracefully. So, Queen, you're looking very good there.
Thank you.
So, in my case, I actually didn't have an intention to go into entrepreneurship, but because I saw the opportunity, it became very attractive to me. I must say that when I started working in the field I'm in, it's quite a niche field. It's called biophotonics. The first thing that was lacking is the type of manpower that I needed, because it's a multidisciplinary field, and we know that scientists are very passionate with their subject matter, ranging from being a physicist to being a virologist or whatever the case. Now, the tricky part about working in the biophotonic space is that you need to stretch yourself. Like, I came in as a medical biochemist and I ended up as a physicist. And, just like the other panelists have already spoken, you then need to come into a point where you are stretching yourself even further and becoming business-minded, okay? So the first thing that became a challenge for me was getting the right manpower So I had to grow my own timber. And that is very tricky in a number of ways. You know, you find you've grown people that have graduated and that have got papers in the field. But now the problem is that due to a lot of factors, they want to leave. So you need to ensure that not only do you grow your own timber, but you also make people offers that they can stay, you know, that will allow them to stay with you. All right. So that was the first thing that I had to overcome. You know, you grow your own timber, but then can you really make attractive offers that will make your people to stay with you? The other thing that really drew me into wanting to become an entrepreneur or wishing to have a spin-off is that of monopolistic behavior that we see, particularly in the medical devices development space. So you find, for example, diagnostics for TB are very expensive, and South Africa is importing them in order to be able to do diagnostics. So I wanted to be part of a team that actually generates those devices here in the country so that we can use them for our own specific problems in Africa, but then also be able to share them globally. So that was the second thing that drew me. The other thing that I found was a very big challenge was that of translating research from the bench top to the market. And that's because usually we want our tech developers to also be the product developers. That is a big mistake. So what I started doing now is that I allow my tech team to specifically focus on that, but then I partner with the industry partners that will now take my technology and produce the products that we want to have. You know, so you need to have your tech team working in tandem with a production team. So you need to have a production line that's separate to the tech developers. I think the other thing that I saw was that it's very important to not only depend on the government for income or grants, but to actually generate your own income. So some of the things that we started doing in my facility is to sell our technology in order to generate income. So that was very important for us. And I think, Paul, for now, I'll leave it there, and I'm happy to engage further.
Thank you, Doctor. That's a super range of lessons and lesson learning, and particularly around the challenge of IP in a very dominant market in the healthcare market. Thank you very much. We have a small few questions. We might take another couple of rounds of contributions. I know a lot of people are asking about, is this going to be viewable afterwards, and because of data issues and so on. And the answer is yes, it will be available on the ASSAf Facebook link, and we can share that at the very end. Maybe just zooming out a bit. So I think we've had some personal experiences around developing a pipeline of commercialization of research for women researchers, of starting your own business and the journey. Maybe looking at what is it in Ireland and South Africa, both countries, that we're similar, that we're doing well, and maybe not so well. And maybe, Jackie, coming back to you, you know, in Ireland we have quite a big cluster of big tech companies, Facebook, Google, Apple. We have a big cluster of medical devices and pharma companies. You have an engineering background, and I pretty understand you worked in the corporate sector before starting your own business. So ideally, there would be a pipeline of women out from those big companies but as we see, it's still, you know, only a quarter of women in STEM, workers in STEM are women. So I suppose from your perspective, it's a big question, but what is it particularly you think Ireland is doing well? You know, you mentioned mentoring and networking. Is that a strength of Ireland? And where would you think are the weaknesses in terms of encouraging more women to start their own business, particularly in the STEM space?
Yeah, I think women, like companies in Ireland, are good at kind of encouraging women, I suppose, to apply and progress within the medtech sector. And they're not Irish companies, they're actually usually American companies that are in Ireland. But one would be Cook Medical. They have a return to work career breaks. So they kind of look at the female, it's not just for females, but for men and females, but normally it's females come back after a career break if they're staying at home with young children. So encouraging that and recognizing that women generally can take these longer breaks, but they're accepted back into the workforce. And I went to see a talk a couple of weeks ago about that, and I thought it was very inspiring to see that a bigger company are encouraging that. And seeing more female leaders, so more in a higher, you know, managerial positions, that we can see, you know, it's not just a pipe dream in our head that women are going to lead, that we can see women doing it, and to encourage that and to make sure they recruit for such women. And I think Irish companies are doing that, but they can definitely do better at creating diverse roles. And I think, you know, we spoke about it earlier, that you kind of mentioned that really comes from a stereotypical belief, this subconscious bias that, you know, gender disparity happens, and that we teach young girls that, you know, I have 3 small children, they're all girls, and that they know that the world is their oyster and they can do whatever they want to do. But it's all well and good saying that, but we need to practice those beliefs. And I think practicing it comes from a young age. You know, and we can't rectify how we grow up, but we can definitely rectify what's happening to kids growing up. So I kind of have a mindset in my head that we need to have people we look up to. So seeing women make those leaps, we need to have women that we go with. So having peers in the same, you know, kind of level as us, encouraging each other to continue, and also to have the next generation come up. So to continue to talk to the younger generation, be it I've gone to talks in schools where I speak to kids, mixed female and male, about the progression and where they can go, and really giving them an insight into where STEM can bring you. It's not just in the lab, you know, it's also in a business perspective. But going back to that, where is that link? I can't remember the lady who spoke after me, and I think she made some very good points that, yeah, it's great being a great scientist, but how can you transfer over then to becoming a business person? And sometimes that is just in your nature. And I think I thankfully naturally had a business attribution. A lot of scientists don't have that. And it's true that they need to have potentially a stepping stone or a side course that they can do to allow them to learn the attributes in the business and sales. And, you know, because that's part of what you need to know if you're going to run a successful business. So that was a good point. And I think that Ireland possibly is not doing as well. Like there's the big courses like BioInnovate, where they take on innovators and teach them how to grow a business and commercialize the product. But is there a more kind of lower level of business training within the science courses? And I think that might be missing actually in Ireland.
It's very interesting, yeah, and we have in Ireland the local enterprise offices, which is a local point of contact for someone starting their own business or looking for supports. But as you say, there may be a tier missing around the smaller business courses that people may not be able to commit to the larger, longer training and courses. And it's interesting, I mean, Professor McTown, just picking up on that, so in Ireland, we're probably fortunate that we have a reasonably good, if you graduate from a STEM course in Irish University, there's a really reasonably good chance of getting private sector employment in one of those big companies we mentioned. South Africa has a challenge around unemployment, and so someone who graduates with a STEM degree may wonder, there may not be the same possibility of employment, and maybe that causes, you know, it means promoting entrepreneurship is all the more important. But specifically, you went to Trinity College in Dublin, you mentioned. Just interested in any perspective you have on what are the differences you thought around maybe the things that Ireland is doing better and Ireland is doing worse than South Africa, around the role of supporting researchers and people at university to commercialize their research. What did you feel were the kind of key things you took away from that trip to Ireland?
Thank you so much for that question. When we started the Trinity Dublin College, we also had a meeting with the tech transfer, and we discovered that they also had same challenges like South African challenges that we've got. Mainly working with the professors, because the professors, they will tell you that they're not going to be entrepreneur or to commercialized. And then here you are as a tech transfer officer, that you need to move that IP to the market. I mean, you cannot just be a liability. Now you talk to someone else who is not interested, and you can't blame the person. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. And that is why even when they train their students, they will train the students that go and, you know, publish papers, which is what is needed from the university, not go and be an entrepreneur. So that becomes, so one of the things that was actually common, it was one of those things that we actually have all these challenges. We used to think that maybe it was just a South African thing. Meanwhile, it's actually all over. I guess it's because of the professors being the professors, how they want to do their whole thing. But now, how they overcome that in Ireland is to make sure that they've got all these workshops, actually not with the real professors, so that an opportunity can be given to the students. And that's what I also decided to introduce, that we need to have a kind of a spin-off policies or commercialization strategy, where even if a student is busy with a PhD or with a master's, can be allowed to license university technology, not to always be threatened that IP belongs to the university, and the university, they're not going to do anything about this IP because they were not even going to be able to take it to the market. Now, with the kind of the students that we've got, we can see that we do have students that actually want to see themselves being entrepreneurial, want to see themselves actually moving to the market, because I mean, the reality is no one is going to employ the kind of students that we are training. I mean, there are no jobs. So, and there is a job that we've got. We have now had with another company that we are doing, we call it Move to Market, where we turn, and this is one of the things that I discovered that Ireland, they were also using the same thing. And I was so proud because I'm also doing the same thing from where I am at DUT. Maybe it's because I'm an entrepreneur, I understand the hassles, the struggle, what I went through as a biotech, you know, to make sure that we turn. So at least now we have partnered with a private company. DSI is also prepared to give us the money. And then in this case is where we move their masters and their PhD to the market. But we only take those ones that they are at the certain technology readiness level 4, those ones that we know TIA is able to fund them, and then we can take them further to be taken to the market. So we have a cohort of 10 of them that we are piloting it, and thanks God for the support as well from the Department of Science and Innovation, and also with the connection as well in this program. And then to see that we we've got a lot of jobs that we can create from our own space, from the research. Is just the way we have just been doing that. And then if the IP, then the university is also going to benefit because they will get the royalties. I mean, royalties, it will be 10, how much? Between 5-10%, it depends what they wanted to do. But what is nice is the venture capital that have shown interest into these projects now. Because if it's not the university, if it's a spin-off company, it's easy for the venture capital to come on board in South Africa. But if the university, the venture capital won't come on board because they will tell you that university, we've got a lot of red tapes. VC, they are running companies. They are not doing R&D and publication. They need to make money. But if you start using the spin-off route, that's where one was able to attract a lot of venture capital that are now interested in terms of investing, in terms of working together. And this is one of the things that it was also common with the Ireland, with what they are also doing. And with them, they've got a lot of venture capital, by the way. And also, one of the things that I really like about them, they've got like, I won't call it a research day, but it's a way that they showcase their IP to, you know, to the venture capitals. And then you pitch this IP that you've got the university, and then they see from which IP the venture capital, they can invest. I found it very fascinating because we went, it's kind of a World Bank where they hosted us. And then these people from Trinity, they were pitching this IP that they can see that is ready to the market, and then it can be commercialized. That is also one of the things that perhaps lesson learned that we can start introducing that into to South Africa. Not having 50 or 20 patents. Out of that, we pay liability every year. And all what we can say to Department of Higher Education and Training is to say them that, oh my God, we have done so well. We've got 5 patents, 20 patents. How many of them did you commercialize? That's supposed to be the language that we're supposed to be talking about. Not the number, but the one to move to the market. Thank you.
Professor, thank you. Very passionate. I mean, the point, the recurring theme, you know, in this discussion, certainly one of the recurring themes is, you know, the need for universities to have incubation, spin-off facilities or partners where people can pitch and go out to market. Another thing you mentioned the Department of Science, and you mentioned the challenge that not all innovators and researchers will be entrepreneurs. It speaks to a program we should mention, which we in the embassy are partnering with the Department of Science on, which is open for applications, unfortunately, until Friday, and it is called the Irish Tech Challenge, and it sports.
I know.
Yes. You know, there are 48 hours left to apply, but essentially it is a program that will select 5 of the best startups in South Africa, preferably or particularly welcome women-led startups, Black-owned businesses and youth-owned enterprises to apply. They will get up to 2 million rand in catalytic funding, but more importantly, a program of a week or 2 week long acceleration in Ireland where they'll meet and engage with the big global tech companies we mentioned,
You are muted. I'm not sure. Paul, you are muted.
Sorry, I accidentally muted myself there. So we're partnering with the Department of Science in this program. It's called the Irish Tech Challenge. So if you simply Google Irish Tech Challenge South Africa, you will find on the website we're partnering with Simolahong Precinct here in Johannesburg on the program. But yeah, so we're partnering with the Department of Science. It's a great opportunity for some of those who might be on this call to apply. And we'll have another round of applications next February of 2024. But what was interesting in the first year of this program, last year we ran it, was that very often the founders, the co-founders, you had someone who was the entrepreneur, the traditional hustle and business person, and then you had the scientist and the researcher who brought the maybe technological solutions. So it's interesting that that speaks to some of the challenges you mentioned. Perhaps I just jump to Dr. Gumede and then we'll maybe take some questions. Dr. Gumede, I understand you were a part of the delegation to Ireland as well, if I'm not mistaken, or at least your university was represented. And just same question to you around what were the key lessons, the key points of interest you found from that exchange that you had in Ireland? And where were you if you were in Ireland? We'd like to know.
Thank you, Paul. So the exchange was I was at TU Dublin. I was in Paul Maguire's team at the Tech Transfer office there. So one of the main things that struck me with some of the support that is provided, for example, one of the problems that I think are fundamental to our ecosystem is we're growing a large pool of emerging researchers. And I think one of the success factors for transitioning from being a researcher to being an entrepreneur in the higher education space is you need a lot of social capital. You need to be able to have experience in working with business and understanding the needs of business in terms of how you do your research, even inventing a product that is suitable for commercialization. And we don't really have that because a large pool of our researchers are early career researchers. They don't have the social capital to have access to that. And one of the products that I thought was very interesting was the innovation vouchers. I think they're managed by Enterprise Ireland that enable small companies to actually work with universities to find business solutions. And I thought that was interesting. One, it encourages those businesses to have access to academics, and it gives the academics experience of actually doing solutions for business, which is one of the things that I think will really go a long way with our cohort of academics and giving them the right experience to have entrepreneurship that is appropriate for academia. So that's really one of the programs that I thought was very interesting. I mean, we do have programs that support the interaction, but it's not designed particularly that way. Technology Innovation Agency has very good programs, but their one was designed very well, and I think it will suit our system very well as well.
Thank you, Dr. Gumede. I want to offer the other panelists an opportunity to come in these broader questions about how does South Africa and how does Ireland support what are we doing well and not so well in supporting women to start their own businesses, particularly from a STEM background. But perhaps Tozama, if I could ask if there are particular questions that you could or are able to call out, and I know we had someone with a raised hand, but perhaps if there are questions also in the chat that you might want to share, and we can put to the panelists for whoever wants to take them.
Thank you, Paul. We have a number of questions, but I'm just going to pick this one for now from Jennifer Uniga. She said, I am in the social sciences. Aside from publishing research findings, how do I venture into enterprise? Okay, thanks, Tozama. I'll open that one up and welcome any of the panelists who want to come in with any. I mean, it's a broad question, but that's exactly where like a lot of our audience are. They're working in that academic space, and they know, you know, the pipeline or the opportunity to publish research, but where do they start? What might be the very, very, very first starting point if they're looking at going into enterprise? I'll throw that wide open to anyone in the panel who wants to venture some advice and solutions to Jennifer.
Okay, let me give Jennifer an advice and solutions, because I am working with a social scientist at Durban University of Technology for the very same reasons, because social scientists also think that they cannot commercialize what they are doing. And this is where it starts. Commercialization is not about the product, that you've got a product and you take it to the market. Most cases, the social scientists, they've got a service that service that they developed while they are doing research, or they were looking at the certain policy, then the policy is not working, and they came with the better solutions that they can use this policy, that on its own is a commercialization, is a service. One of the things that we need to start doing it right, so that at the end of the day, we don't end up talking about this, and from my experience, is, are you solving a real problem? Do you have a superior solution? Can you sustainably deliver this solution? Those are the three main things. Thirdly, who are you doing research for? Do you have a client? Do you have customers? Of course, you're doing it for the peer to read it. But if you're going to take it to the market, who are your clients? Who's going to support you? And if we can, when we start from the beginning, instead of going to do research to the lab, we start asking ourselves these questions. Do I have a client for this? Am I solving sustainable development goals 1 to 19 as an example that we know that will be able to benefit? I mean, of course, blue sky research is good, but gone are those days that we used to do a blue sky research. It's about time that we do research that is going to benefit their country, is going to benefit the economy, and we need to start going through that. So Geneva, what I will just have to say is to go back to the drawing board and to see, I have done this. Who was the client actually? What was the real problem that I was really solving? If you discover that you don't have a client, as I always tell the entrepreneur, don't develop a product and after developing the product, you start asking the people, can you buy my product? Can you buy my product? Meanwhile, you didn't actually check whether you really do have clients for that. And I think this is where we are left behind. And I'm taking this based on my experience. And even now with the workshop that we doing it with the social scientists to take them through so that they can understand it.
Thanks, Professor. Those guiding questions, I think, are very valuable, maybe perhaps for someone who's just thinking about this space. Those are the questions they need to answer before they can think about really going into market. I see some other questions, but I just want to ask if anyone else in the panel wants to add to any of that, to what Professor has said to Jennifer before we maybe take another question or two. Okay, I see Tozama, that Alwande Dube, Alwande has had her hand up for some time, so perhaps if we can allow Alwande to speak. Is Alwande still with us? Alwande, I can let you talk maybe. Okay,
yes,
Alwande,
still
I think
with us.
Yes, okay, Alwande, the floor is yours if you want to ask your question, please. Okay, we'll give Alwande just another moment to, if you can try unmute and ask your question. Okay, we will come back to you. Maybe you might be having some IT issues. Tozama, there are some other questions in the chat. Do you want to perhaps call out one or two other ones?
Yes, please. One is from Anonymous. How does the lack of diversity in STEM entrepreneurship limit the success of women-led businesses? Let me just repeat it. How does the lack of diversity in STEM entrepreneurship limit the success of women-led businesses? Another one, still from Anonymous, how can governments and educational institutions promote more inclusive and equitable opportunities for women in STEM entrepreneurship?
Okay, so how can governments and educational institutions promote more inclusive and equitable opportunities for women in STEM entrepreneurship? And then with the broader question that was asked as well is how does the lack of diversity in STEM entrepreneurship limit the success of women-led business? And perhaps the questioner is thinking not just of gender diversity, but in other contexts too. Perhaps without putting anyone on the spot, bringing in some of the other panelists, Dr. Mthunzi Kufa, do you want to come in any of those themes and questions and topics?
Right. So the biggest problem is that of exclusion. I think we really need to start sharing the success stories, because that's where a lot of people acquire the exposure of what it is that is out there. So there's a lot of success stories that are untold, and that's sometimes because of the exclusion. And I also find, you know, especially with when it comes to females, females are told from a very young age sometimes that you know, STEM is not for girls, STEM is not for maths is difficult for girls. And those are the things that we need to start changing. You know, we need to be intentional by changing some of those things. We need to have teachers that go into class to empower both our young men and our young women into acquiring that confidence that anyone can achieve anything if they set their minds to it. And in terms of our governments, there's a lot of support that comes, but sometimes because of it's obscure, you know, information cannot be shared in a wide way that is accessible to everybody. We need to find ways of accessing everyone. Can we access people in rural areas? Whose responsibility is it to access the people that are not necessarily where you know, things are happening in the cities? So we need to think about things like that when it comes to the issue of inclusion. And then the issue of role models, I find it's very important because right now there's fewer role models in STEM that are female. So we need to look into that, and we start exposing our young generation to those role models. And then I think maybe let me stop there for now. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Doctor, for those contributions. Tozama, I see Dr. Twala has from ASSAf have submitted a question. Do you want to perhaps call out that question, and we can put that to the panel?
Okay, I'm not sure, Dr. Twala, if you want to pose it, or should I read it, Paul? This one is from Dr. Melusi Twala from ASSAf. It's sure. Directed to Prof. Ndawung. However, any member of the panel can respond. It reads as follows: academics generally don't have the commercialization training and experience, whilst Prof. Ndawung recommends training and workshops to close the gap. They will still not have the experience. What 2 key recommendations can she give to elevate the commercialization experience in higher education institutions? Thank you.
Okay, let's put that to Professor Matawang and to the wider panel.
Yes, thank you so much for that questions. Actually, Dr. Twala, I'm already working closely with Department of Higher Education and Training and Department of Science and Innovation and another private company. I won't mention their name just to protect them. For the very same reasons that we have put, it's kind of a program for the program that we are really training. I'm more interested now into the students and researchers that really wants to move to market, because we call it move to market. That will be able to train them, because sometimes the professors, they will tell you that they are not interested. And then when I put this proposal to DHET and to DSI and to one private companies so that they can give us funding so that we can really roll out of this or pilot it, they actually bought into it, that yes, we can do that. And that's what that was one of the things that is going to be kind of a flagship for South Africa, for both Department of Higher Education, Department of Science and Innovation, together with the private, to work together to show that this can be done. We are really working that towards that. We are busy piloting it, but I've just told the DSI that I will pilot it with number of 10. And then from there, we are going to take it, because remember, it's going to be train the trainer. And then we also want to see that it's not only incubation. I mean, one can start doing a visual incubation. We are trying to come with innovative ideas on how we can also be able to commercialize this kind of IP or research in the university that is busy collecting beautiful dust in the library, but not being taken to the market. We are busy with that, and I'm very optimistic. And next year, March, you can ask me how far are you with this project. I'll be able to tell you that I was able to spin close to 10 companies. And how we do it is an MIT, is a multi-inter-transdisciplinary. If the students graduated from faculty, let me just say it's a biotech, we want to put somebody with the background of marketing, somebody with the background of branding, and somebody with the background of accounting, and then they form companies, and we pair them into 5. They form companies, and I'll tell you, because a biotechnologist, I mean, I'm a medical scientist, I know myself, you don't understand anything about branding. So it's better to partner, and I'm talking from experience that I wish I should have learned that before I established Global Health Biotech. So I always share with other people that want to follow my route that I will advise you, get somebody who's got an experience in this, who can assist you with marketing, because you won't understand. Get somebody who can assist you with pricing, because you are not going to be able to understand the pricing. There's a difference between when you do a budget for research and when you price a product or a service that needs to go to the market. So we cannot work in silo. And I think this is where the people, if they want to go the entrepreneurial route, make sure that don't want to be the 100% share owner in the company. Try to get other people that they will augment the expertise that you don't have, and they can also be able to have 5%, 10% in the company, and you can be able to work together. And I think, again, I wish somebody should have also told me the same thing, because when I start, I thought I can do everything, you know, I can be a Superman, and then I discovered that it doesn't really work like that. If I could get somebody with this experience, or even if it's a service, it works better in terms of that. So it is working. We are getting there slowly, but I believe and optimistic that we're going to get there.
Thank you, Professor. I think again, the point about business partners and going out and finding business partners who can cover the areas that you maybe are not as equipped with is a very important one. Maybe just quickly jump, I know we have some questions, and we do want to have some final words of kind of advice, and particularly around what the mindset of an entrepreneur that's needed. But Jackie, just an Irish perspective on, I suppose, any additional thoughts on what you think, maybe at university level, from your perspective, you know, what we do well or not well, and from your own story, was there anything or any mentors or support at university level that maybe spurred or sparked an interest in entrepreneurship, or did that come later from other mentors or sources?
Yeah, it definitely came later. Kind of, I suppose, for university here, you have your undergrad and then your master's, and then if you go on to your PhD, I just went as far as my master's. And it was really when I went into industry, when I think the business world opened up to me and the idea of a business came to mind. And I think, again, Professor Cow made some great points about really understanding the commercialization of your idea. There's many great ideas, but a lot of them are not commercializable. If there's not a customer for that product, then there is no point in going down that route. And I think, for me, I wish I had understood sooner that doing customer discovery and understanding your product more and where it sits is very important. So I think that would be a great aspect to come in quite early in the university side of things. So again, having that business development, it doesn't have to be a very high level, just understanding how business works, you know, the accounts, the budgeting, all of that made really good sense. And I think coming in early would be great. So I think that's probably something that Ireland could do better. What they're doing great is the links with universities and industry. I think that's quite powerful, especially in Galway, where we are. It's the real med tech centre of Ireland and Europe. So we have great access to those industries and links, such as Boston Scientific, Medtronic. You know, they work very well with the universities on trying to give the students exposure, and really, I suppose, to get a pipeline for people coming into the workforce as well, for them to retain and bring talent in. So that's, I suppose, there's a need on both sides, and then trying to break away from that to become an entrepreneur. So when you get into the kind of industry, it's quite hard to step out of it, because it's, you know, there's a risk associated with that. So trying to reduce your risk by linking in with other people and getting your grants. On a mentorship, I don't think I had an entrepreneurial mentorship in university. I definitely had women that I looked up to that are still in academia. I think on the outset, it's probably on a more personal level that my husband is an entrepreneur, so we are working together. So having that somebody that you can lean on and talk to about it is probably very important for me as a person. I think for anybody becoming an entrepreneur, you need to have that support network on a personal level and also on a professional level. So unfortunately, it's not a female one, but I think it's important to know that, you know, to promote women in STEM, it's not just women that need to promote that, it is men that need to promote it as well, you know, to make sure that they encourage and make sure that they know that we can be next to them during this process. So I think that's maybe an important point to make. It's not just, you know, feminism is about inclusion and making sure that men are on board with us and happy to see us succeed.
No, thanks, Jackie, for those thoughts, particularly. And as you say, this is the encouragement of women into STEM entrepreneurship is for all actors, and it's not a siloed conversation for women, for sure. We have a couple of more questions. I do want to get to the last kind of points of advice and from the panelists. For each of the panelists, I see a comment from Professor Michaela Fleischmann. Professor Matang, welcome your thoughts on including entrepreneurship in the undergraduate curriculum to cultivate the ecosystem for innovation very early on in the training of future researchers and innovators. Manoko Molabe says, true, Professor Matang, the move to market strategy is what is required in our current academic curriculum. Multidisciplinary collaboration and teaching is important. My research is on interdisciplinary teaching policy, which will do away with silo teaching. Tozama, I think we had a couple of hands, but I think Fezile Kumalo, if they're still on the call, had their hand up. Maybe it's not up anymore, but Fezile, perhaps if you want to, now's your chance if you want to contribute your question.
Thanks, Paul. So I'm a researcher at UCT, and I think this topic is quite pertinent for the work that I'm doing. So I'm also in translating sciences, but what I found is that I work alone in the academic space, trying to get it translated. And the type of support and mentors are coming from outside and not necessarily from within the academic ecosystem. So I think the people who have been 10 years, 20 years in the sciences also need to start recognizing the value of adding translational aspects of the work as part of the support that they can give. But how do you then change the minds of people who have established themselves as basic scientists to say that there is actually more to the science that we do, especially because a lot of the work that we do, I'm in health sciences, so a lot of the work that we do has health implications. So the impact that it can potentially have in our society is quite major. But for them, the shift towards supporting activities such as mine is not necessarily a high priority list. So as a young researcher, I don't have the social capital that has been spoken about to actually change the environment that I'm in to be able to accommodate such. So if there are any programs that I can tap into, or programs that I'm initiating my own programs within the university, but again, I'm alone basically. And that ecosystem is something that we really need to start and cultivate, and for everybody to come in and not just the ones who are still exploring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fazila. I'll take maybe Alwande's comment or question. Alwande, do you want to come in there and see if we can hear you this time? And if not, perhaps if you want to pop your comment or question in the chat and we'll see if we can pick it up. We seem to be having some connection issues just hearing you, Alwande. So perhaps if you want to pop your question in the chat, we'll see if we can pick it up. But moving, I suppose, to wrap up. And we always kind of hate asking people for one piece of advice because there's so many aspects to this. But that's something we might still ask the panelists to do. And also, I suppose, to note that you know, particularly some of the work we've been doing in the embassy is connecting researchers from Ireland and South Africa purely for research sake, because research, as we know from some of the stories today, can be life-saving, can help address sustainable development goals, even if it's not commercialized. But of course, today we're looking at just at the commercialization piece. But perhaps let's go through the panel and ask for a parting word around, I suppose, well, I give you a choice, maybe 30 seconds if you don't mind, but on what is the mindset that's needed to thrive in the entrepreneurship space, particularly for someone with a researcher background. Or what is the one piece of advice or lesson sharing you feel hasn't been contributed already today that you'd like to share? Maybe starting with Queen, if you want to come in there on that question. And just unmute your mic, Queen. You're still on mute. It might be a connection issue. Maybe we'll.
Hello, somebody admitted. Oh my word.
Now we can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Yes, I just want to tell the young people out there, especially, that, sorry, it's raining at the background. Let's avoid self-limitations, you know. For instance, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a researcher, I'm not technical at all, but I'm into this STEM space, you know. So you need to know which qualities you are best at. For instance, I knew that I'm best when it comes to social capital. I'm best when I have to commercialize business. But although I have the weakness as far as technical skills are concerned, I'm not a scientist. So it's also okay to be a technopreneur, whereby you partner with people, you partner that have technical skills, or the other way around. You are a scientist, but you don't have entrepreneurial orientation. For instance, you're not innovative enough, you're not proactive enough, you don't take the risk, you partner with such, and that will lead you to get into the space and become an entrepreneur. You know, the issues of self-investment, that's very crucial as well. You know, you need to show up. When there's such webinars, people telling their stories, please let the voice be heard as well. And a lot of opportunities, by the way. I know South Africa has its challenges. For instance, I'm one of the beneficiaries for Innovation Hub. I was incubated there for 3 years. I graduated, but the past 3 years, I had an infrastructure of a beautiful offices. So, and with corporate, you know, they have what you call enterprise development or ESD, whereby they want people like yourself, where they can develop you to be a typical entrepreneur. And the issue of sacrifice as well. You know, sometimes you need to understand that entrepreneurship is not easy. You need to accept that at the beginning, you'll have to bootstrap, like investing your time without getting paid. But come with the use case that you know they'll attract funders. So I started with the UN agencies. I'm working with UN agencies now. But before, they didn't buy into my case because I didn't have a tangible delivery that I needed to share with them, even if it wasn't perfect, you know. So my MVP, I had to perfect it until they saw what I'm talking about. And lastly, I'm also saying, don't be in love with the solution. I think someone mentioned it, and understand the pain of the client. Be prepared to reiterate, to change, to pivot until you get it right. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Queen. Very, very inspiring words to finish with from your perspective. Dr. Gomede, same question to you. The mindset is summarizing the mindset that's needed, or a single piece of advice based on your own experience you'd like to give to the audience joining us today.
Thank you, Paul. I think it's resilience and understanding that there is a cost to the transition from moving from being an academic researcher to being an entrepreneur. And one thing that usually comes up when you deal with female entrepreneurs is we tend to sometimes under budget or do conservative costing, and then it sounds like we're over-promising. So we must have the courage to ask for what we need and negotiate. A lot of programs are not tailored for female entrepreneurs, so you've got to negotiate what you need in terms of time out from your academic responsibilities, in terms of the budget that's required for the spin out that you need. So I would really encourage people who are moving from academic or who are starting academic startups to have the courage to ask for exactly what they need, as well as understand that there is a cost and you have to be resilient to see it through. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gomede. Thank you. Dr. Patience Mtunzi Kufa, over to you for your final words on this topic.
Yeah, so I'm also erring along the same lines of having that type of tolerant mindset. You shouldn't give up easily. You must surround yourself with people who are expert in the field, wherever you can get them. You know, you must always try to find a way to have an appetite for learning, to you know, be even tapping into fields that you don't have a comfort zone. But most importantly, you need to also have a good exiting strategy. Any business must have a very good exiting strategy, because sometimes that's where the nuggets of wisdom can come from. So, you know what, once you know what it is that is the worst thing that can happen in your business, then you are prepared to actually be able to grow it and make it more fruition. Okay. So for me, it would be, you know, be able to just be relentless and be able to surround yourself with those who know. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for those words. Jackie O'Connor, over to you in Ireland. Some final words of, I suppose, advice, wisdom, and the mindset piece from you.
Yeah, I think the mindset is definitely one of tolerance and risk taking. So there is an element of risk taking when it comes to becoming an entrepreneur. The safety net of academia is gone. You're out there in a little bit of a, I suppose, rockier path. So to be able to be comfortable with that, get yourself used to not everything going from A to B to C. It's a bit more of an untangible line. So that's something. And then also that to back yourself, to know that you can do this. It's not something people do it every day. People, start businesses every single day. So if you believe in your idea and you have researched that there is a customer for this idea, back yourself and know that you can do it. And there is help out there. You probably have to seek the help. The help doesn't knock on your door. So make sure that you're active in your pursuit and that you can make sure to ask for help and know where to ask for help as well. That it's possible with hard work and to ensure that you are able for this.
Thank you, Jackie, for that. Finishing with you, Professor McTown, your final words as part of this panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Paul. But before that, I will love the lady from UCT to contact me so that I can assist with the research. I'm not sure whether it was Fezile Kumalo, but just to drop me an email so that I can show her the rope, because I can see where she is. The last thing that I just want to share with the entrepreneurs, if you want to go that route, I always said you have to have a dream. Because I call it the key ingredients of entrepreneurs. Have the dream, and it's not your mother's dream, it's not your supervisor's dream, it's your own dream, like Martin Luther King when he had a dream of America having a Black South African. So that is your dream. Number two, you need to have the purpose. You need a strong, clear purpose driving you to succeed in business. And that's also the other thing. Thirdly, I had to persevere. Perseverance is that I had to overcome many challenges. And I'm talking from my experience in the biotech space. It was not an easy, but I have to overcome many challenges, succeed. That I found myself, it was important to persist in my effort and not to be afraid to use my academic experience in the commercial space, because sometimes it was going to be difficult that, you've got a product and somebody from the biotech, because they've been there for so long and thinking that you don't know what you're talking about. Lastly, the passion. You have to have a passion. I mean, if you don't have it, you have to go and buy it. Go Edgar's, True Words, wherever shops that they are selling it. But you have to have a passion, because you are going to pitch to the investors. And if you don't have a passion, how are they going to invest on you if you don't show that you've got a passion of your products? That's what I just want to say. Thank you.
Professor, thank you so much. And I think Simahele Shakwane said it best. Thank you for the inspirational conversation. Thank you for our panelists for the hard-headed, cold advice and real talk, and the inspiration, the lesson sharing, your experiences, your stories have all been fantastic. And thank you very much. I hope our attendees have enjoyed and found it at least nuggets of advice and wisdom. I'm going to pass to our colleague Tazama from ASSAf to finish up. Before I do, just to say, I think Tazama, you can mention yourself, but the live stream will be available on ASSAf's website on the link mentioned. Can I just give one final quick plug to the programs we've developed? These networks, these connections between Irish and South African researchers, thought leaders are so important for us, because we can learn mutually and share expertise. And so in formalizing those networks, that's what the Irish Tech Challenge is about, supporting South African entrepreneurs to get access to the Irish tech ecosystem through our program. We've shared the link on the website. We also have a very active research partnership between THENSA, the network of universities of technology here in South Africa, and their counterparts in Ireland. Numbers of study visits over and back in a whole load of sectors, including on drones, actually. So those who are based in universities of technology and you're in the research space, very interested to connect with THENSA in order to connect to the opportunities and linking to the Irish ecosystem, research ecosystem there. And lastly, we in the embassy also run a Kader Asmal fellowship program for master's students. So those who have completed an undergraduate, the opportunity to do a fully funded master's in Ireland and we're encouraging women in STEM, women to choose STEM courses as part of that fellowship. You can do a fully paid master's in Ireland and bring that experience back to South Africa to contribute in the research and entrepreneurship space. Those are some of the interventions that we in the embassy are running in order to develop further those links between Ireland and South Africa. There are a lot of where we've been friends for a long time, even except in rugby, but we want to use those friendships and links now to build modern innovation, technology and innovation partnerships between our two countries. So I think I've said enough, and I will pass to you, Tazama, for the final words. Thank you once again to our panelists, and thank you to our audience for taking part so interactively in this discussion. Tazama, over to you.
Thank you so very much, Paul, and many thanks for your great facilitation of this webinar and how you made the discussion and engagement run seamlessly. Thank you so very much. And many thanks to our Executive Officer, Prof. Himda Sudjal, for the warm welcome, the great strides, the leadership at the Academy. And as she mentioned, you know, entrepreneurship is more like bringing a recipe and a flavor to the STEM, you know, careers. And at the Academy of Science of South Africa, we aspire to be the apex organization for science and scholarship in South Africa, recognized and connected both nationally and internationally. And Ambassador Gomli, it is platforms of this nature, platforms that facilitate STI cooperation between South Africa and Ireland and other global counterparts, that this vision can be realized through. Thank you so very much for your leadership at the embassy. We highly appreciate, you know, the welcome remarks that you gave this morning. To our speakers, Prof. Mutawung, Mendlovu, Dr. Gumede, Jackie, and Dr. Mtunzi Kufa. The work that you are doing is commendable, and it is heartwarming just listening to what you are doing. And as it was mentioned during the discussion, unemployment is one of the great challenges that we're faced with. And this challenge, it yields to so other many various social ills. And you briefed us on how you transcended, you know, from just having a concept to protecting your IP and now having, you know, startups and companies. Your incredible fortitude, your insight, your experience has also empowered us this morning. Thank you so very much. May you continue to be supported as you thrive in STEM entrepreneurship. And definitely from time to time, we'll be knocking on your doors as this session is the second of the series. So we're still gonna continue on this route. To the Department of Science and Innovation, thank you so very much. We greatly appreciate your support. We greatly appreciate the funding that we're also getting as the Academy from the Department of Science and Innovation. To the organizing team, both from the embassy as well as from the Academy, just to mention a few, because of the time, I won't be able to mention everyone. Mervyn, Elias, Paul, Henriette, Dr. Twala, Renate, many thanks for the collective effort and the team spirit. Without that support, we're not going to be able to have this webinar today. And finally, I would like to thank all the participants. Without the engagement, without you attending today, this was not going to be possible. And with that, I think I have to hand over back to Paul. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Tazama, for those warm final words. Nothing left to say, but thank you, everyone. I see there's already a very good connection made with Fazile and Professor Mutawung. If that alone is the outcome for this, that's a very good outcome. But thank you, everyone. We do hope to run an in-person event linked to Women in STEM next year between ASSAf and the Embassy. We'll obviously be in touch online on our social channels with more information on that into next year. But otherwise, thank you, everyone, for your participation and have a great rest of the day. And thank you once again, and good luck to those who are thinking of going down the entrepreneurship route. The very best of luck to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.